Thank you so much, everyone, and good morning. I'd love to, have been there in person, but I'm joining you today from a fair distance away in Bangalore, in India. Um, I want to share a little bit. I want to use a slide deck to just walk you through a little bit of what I'm saying. It's not critical, but I think it might just provide some visual cues for the story I'm about to share with you. I most of my time, at least when we speak to some of our the kind of communities that we work with here, the first impression is we do some crazy things with technology, and that's what we're about. But as I'm about to share with you, technology is one language we speak, but I think the core of our work is really not that. And I want to speak a little bit about what I think the core of, I want to give myself permission with this kind of audience to speak about what I think the core of the work is and why I believe that there's learnings here for us, certainly, but for everyone else in terms of how this matters, why the approach we've taken matters. Of course, it's still very much a work in progress, but I hope that this is at least the beginning of a conversation with some of you. So you know, as Akhil has very kindly introduced, it's always good to see a fellow Indian, and he's very generously mentioned that I work in the law and justice space, and this is a particularly entrenched space. So a lot of what we are doing in response to how do you take on an entrenched problem, and this is going to be a recurring theme as I talk a little bit about our work. So I want to take you all to a moment that I think some of you may remember. I mean, actually, more so on your side of the world, which is the announcement of the decoding of the human genome project. And I remember being in college, and there was this all this excitement, and really the declaration was that everything would happen now, and there would be these miraculous solutions, and what really happened was we all understood that far more than the genetic code, this fixed sort of genetic code, what determines our fate, our reality is the epigenetics and the environmental factors. And you can say that it's not 50-50, it's maybe much more epigenetic and environmental factors. And this is a theme. And what do I mean? What I mean is the theme is that somehow we are always looking for these great tech fixes. And if it's not a great tech fix, we're looking for that perfect new policy. And, don't get me wrong, I have done it myself, and many friends have worked for years, maybe even decades, to get to the perfect policy. And of course, everyone's favorite now, new mindsets, and we're always kind of looking for these things. And for some reason, there is a strange discomfort in us, and we feel that, we're doing this, but these are like paper boats on the ocean, and that these are small, fragile efforts that get overturned because what's at stake and what's happening is just far more. The forces that we are seeing um, are far outnumbered by the forces that we sense, but we're not seeing very clearly, and they're there. And this is happening all around us. So therefore, change looks fragile, change looks uncertain, and this is where, of course, we can start to lose hope in some way. And don't get me wrong, this is not me saying that the great tech fixes or the great policy changes and the mindset changes are not vital. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's something we're not considering. There's something we're not factoring in. So what is that? Um, and what is that gap between where we are solving for problems and where we need to solve? Um, and I think this is something that I've been reflecting on for a long time in my life, and I know that I'm not alone. I'm only following in the footsteps of many others who've been reflecting on the fact that why is it that what we're solving for seems to be at the surface, scratching at the surface, while where we need to solve seems to be somewhere far away beyond us, manifesting in possibly dark consequences, but seems to be beyond us. And this also results in the fact that, you see the new system change idea, you see the new social technology, you see the new policy, but somehow all of it is pales in comparison to fear and polarization and burnout, and we feel like we are playing in a tiny playground, right? Um, and I think uh, this really is because we cannot replace broken with broken. We must replace broken with whole. And it points us in a certain direction that I think uh, has become more clear to us in the last few years. And I think this one person who has done this in the West with aplomb is Otto Scharmer. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Otto Scharmer, Theory U. Um, Otto Scharmer is at MIT, and he has been steadily demonstrating that we really are a lot of the fractures that we're seeing, a lot of our inability to lead effectively, our ability to make change effectively, is because we're not acknowledging that there are these fundamental divides. He calls it the three divides, right? The eco divide, which is the split between self and nature. So whenever we create solutions, there's something off because we're not understanding that we are split, self and nature. And the philosopher Krishnamurti in India always said that uh, let a child grow in an environment where the child does not dissociate self and nature, because then solving for nature will become an egotistical activity as opposed to manifesting a better possibility. Social divide, self and society. I don't need to say more about this, but I think this is rampant and everywhere. And the spiritual divide, which I think Otto Scharmer recognizes as the most potent of these, which is really existential. The self and the self, the disconnect of the self with self. And I really appreciate this, but it makes me smile because I think as a student of um, Eastern approaches, I remember one great Indian master who wrote this beautiful book called I Am That, which is this proposition that I am self, I am nature, I am community. So really the only fracture is self and self. But that's me spinning off in a direction that is not necessary today. But I do want to anchor to what Otto Scharmer is saying, that unless and until we are able to factor in these disconnects and move forward and lead in a different way, we will constantly be replacing the broken with the broken. And this is not just about my field of work. This is about innovation or change in uh, any facets of the world as we have before us today. Um, so really, what are we talking about? We're saying, yes, we need the great tech fixes, we need the new policies, we need the new mindsets, but we need it on a new foundation of conscious collective leadership. And really, this is our work. Often I find myself, because of the fact that we work in the law and justice community, often I find myself being forced to define the work as some potential of technology and some potential, some innovation, insofar as mindsets and whatever. And I shy away from calling it what it is, because sometimes it needs also people to be ready to accept what it is. But to me, the core work is conscious collective leadership. How do you develop conscious collective leadership in an area to create irreversible change? And that has been our core work. And I want to talk to you a little bit about how we've gone about it, and really drawing from so much of Otto Scharmer's work. In fact, one of Theory U's practitioners, leading practitioners, has been our lead facilitator for 7 years now. And I would love it if at some point you would also read his writings. But I want to share with you a glimpse of this conscious collective leadership. So I will start with what it can result in. Just a few months back, we launched India's first fully online 24/7 court, a new court in the state of Kerala. And this was no small achievement, because this court has been designed by a very diverse group of people, with the user, the ordinary citizen, at the center, which is a big departure from a system which in the US as well is so centered on lawyers and judges, and is hardly really that much about the litigant. Maybe better than India, better than India for sure. But so this was a big leap forward. And but while this was seen as another technology story, really beneath it, beneath the launch of this new court, was people. And the fact that very disparate actors, in this case 50 plus actors, judges, economists, technologists, designers, innovators, social scientists, had all worked together despite very differing approaches, to actually be able to design and launch this court in a way that, in a world that would have otherwise been fraught with who are you, what is your legitimacy, these people had traveled together and are traveling together to design this court. And in order to get those people to work together, they had gone through the theory U methodology, which is bringing them together and taking them through how theory U gets its name, the U. When you begin with seeing with an open mind, then you sense with an open heart, then you, through the time you spend and the practices you do, you ultimately enter into a space where you can tap the inner source in silence. And that then you move from there out. So you don't go and say, what do you have on your mind straight away? You don't start to bring your mind immediately into it. You go together on a journey that allows for you to plumb a collective silence, for you to be able to tap into each other's consciousness and develop something different, and then be able to design. And that is, when you're doing that with actors that aren't used to undertaking those journeys, these people that I mentioned, that can be challenging. But once they did go through the journey, the result was forming this community that was able to create this hopefully game-changing judicial system in the country. And I would love you to look in more depth at Theory U. I'm sure you have access to resources I can also share, but it's a beautiful process. And in some way, people were staying together, playing together, praying together, and that collective process resulted in a degree of comfort and confidence for very disparate people to work together, to be able to challenge each other, get past their classic roles. Oh, you're an academic. Oh, you're a judge. Oh, you're just a 22-year-old. Who are you? And get past those roles and be able to actually create something that's different. So this process was so important. And this process is not in isolation. For the last 7 years now, this has been our core work. Our core work has been identifying change-minded actors across the country, across ideological divides, across government, judiciary, civil society, industry, and being able to build this regenerative changemaker ecosystem. I say that because we do not go to these people with just I say, here are ideas, what's your idea? We go to these people saying, here are our hearts, and here is this journey, and here are amazing people, and let's work together. And it's slow, but the compounding effects of it result in the kind of things that I was sharing with you in terms of the launch of the virtual court. um, I want to give you a glimpse. I'm going to request the team there to maybe play for you a small video. Before I do that, this is our year-end gathering when the entire ecosystem comes together. Very, very precious time, and spends 3 days together. Uh, and it has profound impact on the way people show up in the ongoing journeys of creation, innovation, change. I want to share that. I want to show you that video. It's a bit long, it's 5 minutes, so bear with me. I hope you have your coffee and your bagels in your hand. Watch it. And then after that, I'll just pick it apart a little bit and share a little bit more before I close. So, could somebody play that video? And yeah, it's best shown from there rather than me streaming it.
यहाँ में पूरे देश में विश्व में झगड़ा हो रहा है और यहाँ पे एक हमारे यहाँ पर जो है न्याय का मेला हो रहा है. Nepal is actually the first such gathering, 700 plus people, and the Vela is a space for those of us who are a little bit still hungry and foolish, who want to try to transform systems with new ideas, and who are looking for others to support them in the journey. How is Sushmita? I'm a filmmaker, researcher, designer. I'm a painter. I'm a public policy professional. We are exploring how technology can be leveraged in a space of justice. I got down at the station yesterday, and the first people I met were like my sarpanch, my like Nandurbar ke Haranpuri ke sarpanch, वहाँ के लोग. So I think it's so beautiful and cool to sort of sit at a conference which involves them also. Everything is in English. So often we talk about indigenous knowledge systems without actually indigenous people being a part of the country. I started developing a more than intellectual sense of how it feels to be excluded in that sense. So once I got over that, you realize that there are other ways to connect. Do you want to play? This guy, and then you end the story. Is it okay? It's by Fez MFS. I've seen a bit of it. There is no single voice or track. It's not a monophonic universe. It's a polyphonic universe. So this polyphony, this multiculturalism, these all should come together. दिलों के टुकड़े जोड़कर बनते हैं मेरे मेरे का एक टुकड़ा आप भी अपने साथ ले लें और अपने घर के आंगन में बोले ताकि हर प्रांत हर शहर हर गांव सैकड़ों मेले उगाएं आपके और मेरे जैसे भटकों के लिए एक जगह बनाएं जहां हम गहरे सत्य को साथ में देख पाए लड़े झगड़े पर साथ साथ सर्ग रात में आग को ताप पाए. And then somebody may be inside the formal system, somebody may be outside, somebody may be grassroots, someone is industry. Everyone who shares those ideas shares a certain identity, that of an innovator, that of a problem solver, that of a justice maker. जो रोमिंग क्लाइंट है मैं एक तरह से मैं कई बार कहता हूँ कि ये लोग डाइवर्सिटी के एग्जाम्पल लाइफ एग्जाम्पल बांग्लादेश में हम इंदौर हो गए तो हम किसी को पैसा नहीं खाने देंगे मुझे तो न्याय कभी नहीं मिलता क्योंकि न्याय मुझे हमेशा खोज देता है ये हमारे कानून में और इनको हम इस तरीके से इंटरप्रेट करते हैं the demand for simplicity council is a problem like tell me are you for or against it मैंने बताया कि मुझे पत्रकारिता करनी है तो हमने यही कहा कि अच्छे करके रखिए वैसे काम बंदे को सुधारने के लिए जेल में भेजा जाता है तो बस मैं भी सुधर गया आपके सामने खड़ा हूँ देख तो सुनिए अगला गाना सब बोलेंगे break from the eastern part of Ladakh. Living the life that we are living, operating in the preset systems that we have, sometimes exhaustion can set in about things not being open to changing. But in our experience and the kind of people that Adami brings together, that's not true. प्रहलाद टिप्पणिया जी ने कहा था कि जब दृष्टि बदलेगी तब सृष्टि बदलेगी and that will only happen when we get a bit crazy when we think of law and justice not as black and white but pink, yellow, blue, green. कभी ना भूले.
I think, can someone confirm that it's okay, fabulous. Thank you. So thank you for bearing with me and watching that. But frankly, that thanks to a wonderful filmmaker, that captures the essence of the kind of ecosystem we're building better than I ever could. And I want to mention a few things about this, which I think will maybe emphasize, will make the message more emphatic. One is, just last year, we because of this work, we were ranked as the top 20 systems change organizations in the country, and I think we were one of the youngest organizations. And the reason why this happened is because of this approach, this singular approach towards creating a regenerative, extremely diverse community of conscious leaders, and doing that work, trusting that the relationships and the spaces that create will result in that cascade of changes, of new technology, new policy, new, but not the other way, that we should look at things in isolation, because then you don't create a stable container for that change to happen. Things are too fragile. Let's not forget the monster at the bottom of the ocean. um, and when you look at complex systems, like you look at India, I never fail to be amazed by its absolute diversity. Any Indian that pretends to understand India is also lying. Okay, it's extremely diverse, and you need to have that approach that you need a million ideas. You don't need one idea from somebody. You need a million, but then to create the million ideas, you need an ecosystem, a genuine ecosystem, and you need people looking out for each other and across the divide. And that is really, really important, and that takes time. By putting creativity, innovation at the center, by putting art at the center. This is, I cannot emphasize to you, our lead facilitator often says this beautiful thing. He says, only art can bridge the crack in our hearts. And there's a role for art, and therefore you saw the role of the artist justice change makers in the middle of this, not just the AI justice change makers that somehow the narrative seems to be, that's the way to go. It's everybody together, recognizing all the capacities. Finally, I will say some of the key elements before I wrap, which make our work happen. Maybe I'm sure you looked at it and you probably pulled it out already, but discovering change makers across divides, across industry, across citizenship, looking for innovative people, creating a song of songs, not one rigid narrative, but accommodating multiple narratives under a broad narrative of a better justice that everyone can agree with, and creating new rituals. I cannot emphasize this more. We need new rituals. We have broken society in such a way that we have lost rituals. We have substituted rituals with explanations of rituals, and we need to get away from that. We need to create spaces, as you saw in the video, to gather, learn across the long arc, so that the possibilities can compound genuine relationships when we create it. And finally, we need to allow for deeper collective inner work. We cannot run from that, because only that will allow us to address the full pyramid, and to solve the self for self disconnect, so that ideas truly reach their full potential, whether it's a new court, or it's a new legal service. All of that is just the outcome of this approach. Um, for those of you who are interested, there is more on the methodology that we have followed, but that's it from me at this point in time. I'm going to just stop sharing. Happy to take a couple of questions, but yeah, thank you, Timmy. There's somebody will have to please let me know if there's a question, or uh, you know you want me to switch off video, whichever way. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I can't hear much in case anyone's speaking. The audio isn't clear. If no one is speaking, apologies. Just message me on the chat. I cannot hear anything in case someone is saying something.
Um, Hi, I guess our mic wasn't working. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly now. Thank you.
I don't know where the camera is. So my question was, how did you inclusively identify and bring together all these people from different backgrounds and professions and figure out what this group should look like and, make that inclusive while also identifying the people that you needed?
Yes, thank you. That is a live question. It goes on every single day, right? But I think the um, in the beginning, of course, we would do very targeted, and I spent 6 years at Ashoka in Washington D.C., not far away. I would come up to New York quite often, and I saw the search process for Ashoka Fellows so closely, and so I benefited from that. But essentially, we really were diligent about looking. And of course, we weren't looking for Ashoka fellow level social entrepreneurs. We have a much broader, more flexible interpretation because we are not fetishizing a few game change ideas. We're looking at anyone with an appetite for change, right? And that breadth is there. So much more justice change makers and not just justice social entrepreneurs, right? But we've looked very consciously by building local networks. And I think a really key thing has been the kind of story we tell and the spaces we hold. Because however hard we would look, if the story we tell is a very narrow story, or already it'll exclude people, right? And if the spaces we hold are already loaded with judgment, then again that'll exclude people. So the design of our stories and the design of you can also call it invite, and the design of our spaces is where the love and affection really goes in. And I would say that that's where the rituals come through. That when someone comes speaking a tribal language, and they're already waiting that, okay, when am I going to be excluded? So there is a very important role of that particular correct design. And unless we start doing that from the beginning, we're already falling into the trap of sitting at the top of that pyramid and not solving for the bottom.
Hi, Sachin. I'm Kelly Burton. I teach here at Parsons. And I was wondering if you could talk about that mix or what's in the recipe, because I saw games, I saw music, I saw art. Like, what's that kind of alchemy and what does that do to generate that kind of consciousness that you're looking for?
Hi. So what you saw was the year-end gathering, right? And our year-end gathering is only one dimension of our ecosystem building work. Our ecosystem building work manifests through gatherings, through one-to-ones, through the collaborative missions. So the courts work, you saw the launch for the digital courts work, and there's also a lot of work we do in the AI space. There's a lot of containers. I'm using that specific word, containers, spaces where we create these possibilities for people to come together, engage authentically, and move forward. But where it comes to, but what we try to look at is we try to look at how do you address body, heart, mind, and we look at that whole picture. We look at whole people, whole communities. So there's a lot of love in terms of how do you design those right spaces. What you saw, games, and because you see different people have inclinations to show up differently. So when we create containers like that, there are some people who are going to be like, uh, I feel like sitting in the morning and doing meditation with some my brothers and sisters, and somebody else will be like, I feel like dancing. And we need to create the space. At the same time, there is that subtle shared message that we're all building something better together in our different ways. And there are these combined spaces. So there's effort in the design, but I'm very, very happy to share with you more pieces on how we've designed it. And we've kind of been pretty good at documenting some of these things. So um, another way to look at our design is the very antithesis of the classic conference methodology: four people on the panel, 25 people sitting at one level below. Another way to look at it is deconstructing that, because that hasn't gotten us anywhere. So maybe that's something that can help. Timmy, there's a question online. How are you able to keep these various actors engaged? That's a fabulous point. And the key is that when we create these containers and we have these people coming in, if these containers are done right, people engage each other. And not everyone needs can be engaged, but people engage each other over the long arc. So there can be phases where people come and say, "This was amazing. I met great people, but I don't know what to do with them." But but it's the long arc. After 2 years, people are like, "You know what? I met that person, and then that was the right time, and oh my God, we were able to connect so deeply." So I think that we aren't putting ourselves at the center. We have a few collaborative missions, the digital course mission, the AI mission, um, some collaborative missions, but I think we hold this broad horizontal space, not getting sucked into kind of creating the expectation that we shall create engagement pathways. We trust that with solid social capital, engagement pathways get generated because the rest of the people are also leading their organizations and their missions. Timmy's got another fabulous question, but let me just maybe pause for a second. Is there anything else in the room before I? Yeah, I see someone coming up.
Firstly, and first of all, I loved the video. It was so good. I come from a city where the video was short, and I could understand Hindi and English. And just a suggestion, subtitles would have been great because I saw a lot of confused faces here. So one question,
Did you see without the English subtitles?
yeah, there were no subtitles. Uh,
Oh,
Uh, but even like I understood Hindi, it was so beautifully written. I loved the video. One small question is, so I see that AI is or any kind of new technology, it's far from the smaller codes in India. And I love how you designed the games. Is there any way that you promote continued engagement where people could take these games or knowledge back to their smaller communities and share it with people right from a lower level and lower like schools?
great to meet you from Bhopal. We had a wonderful time there. Um, I'm sorry about that video not having subtitles because yeah, I'm surprised how that happened um, because I was seeing subtitles, but something must have switched off. I'm sorry about the puzzled people being confused about it, but happy to share the link again. But what you said about the games and people taking things back. Absolutely. There's so much we get the community brings its own artifacts and we create spaces where people can actually say, okay, here's how we are talking about this man-animal conflict and environmental issues in our place. So we really encourage people to share that language back. So the Mela becomes a big platform for people to come and bring their artifacts and their mechanisms. And we're doing that all the time. But I think that's a great feedback. And, like, I think we need to do more to equip our community with some of the things that they can take back with them. So I really like that. And I'm going to hold that thought for our work going forward. But great to meet another Bhopali here. Timmy asks a question. I know we're probably running short of time, so please let me know when we need to wrap up. But uh, from a technology first perspective to centering people and nature and community, yeah, wow. Well, I'm in Bangalore. I look left and there's a technologist. I look right, there's a technologist. Behind me, there's a technologist. So Bangalore is all about technology, and I think that what we realize is that um, at the end of the day, it's really the people and the communities, and we've seen like somebody will say, oh, that's never going to work, or that's we can't build that, or we can't do that, and suddenly they're in a different social relationship and they're like, of course we can build that. So how does that happen? Because I think we're constantly holding different stories in our heads, and the best stories are unlocked by just community people. So I think we put that at the center. And when you look at what Otto Sharma and all are saying, is that you have to go down to the bottom of the you have to presence, you have to plumb the depths together and come back on the other side to see what's possible and you have to let go of your judgment and your identities are very strong, let's admit it. We love to sit behind them and wax eloquently about the fate of the world, but get us out of into our bodies, get us into our hearts and engage differently completely. It's hard. But frankly, we're not going to shift this situation that we're in globally unless and until we try something totally different. So I remain a big fan of what Otto Sharma is doing, and ours is just one initiative centering that as a core part of our work.
Thank you very much, Sachin. This was a great talk, and I enjoyed watching the video. Even though it had no subtitle, I do understand Hindi, but I think even without the language, the spirit came through beautifully. The multisensory experience, the play in the community, and everything came through really beautifully and vibrantly. I think I'm going to make it a point to show up for the next Mela. Keep me
Come,
in.
everybody is invited. Come experience the next Mela. This time it'll be 1,000 people, and we are still figuring out a location. It'll be amazing. So please come.
Thank you very much. And we're going to have to cut you off, but please, I'm happy to share Sachin's information. He is a wonderful, warm, and creative entrepreneur. Excited to learn more and continue this collaboration. And I know that he has a real felt connection with art and design and Parsons. And so I'm sure we can pull him into another event. And in person, hopefully things will be different in a few months and we'll have more stability. So thank you very much, Sachin.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.